Hi and welcome. Chris Principe, publisher of Financial IT, here at Money 2020. Truly one of the most unique and amazing events when you talk about the financial space. This is where Europe comes for money. Money 2020 is being hosted in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Great location. We're having a lot of fun here. And I'm really pleased to introduce my guest who's from Standard Chartered. Please tell us a little bit about
Thank you, and really excited to be here. My name is Vibhor Narang. I am the Executive Director in Transaction Banking in Standard Chartered. What I do here is I head the Structured Solutions team for the transaction banking space, and we do create some really good path-breaking solutions for our corporate customers in Europe and elsewhere in our network.
Well, I'll tell you, great. Being an old transaction banker myself, I'm really pleased to get to sit with somebody who's doing it every day.
Absolutely.
What do you find is the challenges your clients are having out there right now?
I mean, the clients, and I will pick up because there are a lot of things that we can speak about, but the most interesting piece which I see is about the payments. That's a very, very interesting space, still very interesting space to be in. Uh, Clients are really excited about how much the industry has evolved over time, but they're also finding it challenged to actually send the right kind of money at the right place in the right time and get the right reporting behind it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned payments, especially here at Money 2020, when as we look around, that's a big part. And the payments business, and you quite correctly mentioned, it's been around a long time, but it's constantly evolving. Quite a challenge to stay up with, especially somebody in your position.
Absolutely, and being spent like over 20 years in the payments space itself, I'm seeing uh, two different things over here. The first one is nothing has changed. The philosophy, the fundamentals, the physics of the payments remain the same. But also on the other side, there is a lot that has changed. One thing which I have seen is like 20 years back, nobody was talking about the payments. Payments were just as a medium of fulfillment, of transferring a large value at the back of a transaction from one point to the other. They really didn't care about when the money is reaching on the other side, and they really didn't care about how much cost it actually has to incur in order to move that particular funds. Since then, the industry has moved like there has been tectonic shifts in the moment, and as we see today, payments industry is having a completely different shape and so.
Well, what's interesting to me also is that, there's such a variety of payments, depending on the value, depending on where it has to go, depending on the currencies and everything. And, I want to kind of step back just for a second, because one type of payment, which used to be very prevalent, we don't hear so much of, is wire transfers.
Yeah.
Is that business just going away and for specific needs, or is it still something that corporates are looking at?
Corporates still do wire transfers for really large value transactions, but you're absolutely right that the so-called low value transfer and the so-called high value transfer, which is representing these TT transfers or the large quality transfers, the boundaries are blurring. The amount which is allowed under a so-called low value transfer is no longer a low value. Like, you see any of these low value payment rails, the amounts which the corporates are transferring is in millions, basically. So that's where the requirement is coming down, particularly, and also nobody wants to spend that much amount of money to push that money across. And there are so many different use cases across various corporates. It's not just about transferring that high value. It's also about transferring a huge volume of payments. There's a massive e-commerce industry that has come up. There's a development organizations which are sending charity money, across. And then there are money which has been transferred to the unbanked people, so you think about the inclusivity as well. So there's a lot of variety over there.
It's interesting the variety that you mentioned, because you almost take a lot of this for granted. And when you look at the unbanked, and you always hear what a great opportunity is, but in most cases, those people really just need a way to pay and get paid. And the bank is able to provide that for them.
So let me take it back in terms of what are the fundamental aspects of making a payment. And as I said earlier, that nothing has changed in the last 20 years or so. The four fundamental pillars of the successful payment engine is how good you are on the collection side, how good you are on the distribution side, how quickly you can make the transfer, and how cheaply you can make the transfer. That particular model is still remains the same. At the top of which there is a compliance and the risk piece, which actually is type of a roof over these four pillars, and the fundamental, the base of that is something like, we call about the technology. So that has remained constant over the years. People take it for granted. To your question, yes, that this is something which is very obvious, but there is a huge amount of technology which works behind it to make it very obvious and make it error free, and how the payments are moved from one point to the other. But still the challenges exist, particularly in the cross-border transfer.
However, in terms of that challenge and technology, it's uh, more and more difficult to develop technology. Are you looking to partner, and have you partnered with some fintech companies in certain aspects?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the recent example which I can think about, what the bank has done, is into the blockchain side of things. One of the biggest challenges of the industry has been the whole correspondent banks and the kind of value they suck in from a payment value which is transferred from point A to point Z, which the beneficiary is uncertain about how much money they are going to get and how much the overall charge will be, how much time it's going to create. Evolution of the payment space in the blockchain area has actually taken out all these issues, plus the security side of it. So we have partnered and invested into a fintech called Partior, which there is a consortium of other banks as well. And we have actually created a ecosystem where the value is transferred from one point to the other, which is 24/7, almost, free of cost, absolutely error free, and it's a regulator's delight.
Right, because there's plenty of audit trail and things for them.
Absolutely. It is basically, you cannot intrude into that system and break that system. It's as simple as that. So there's a complete audit trail. There's a complete information as to who is paying what and for what. That's what the questions from regulators' point of view. From a cyber security point of view, this is because of the blockchain technology, it is almost unbreakable. And imagine that, when you're transferring value from one point to the other 24/7, there is no issue of a cutoff time, and the money is going to get, into Japan the next day, for example. I'm just taking an example here from Europe to like Far East in Asia on the next day or 2 days later. That's simply not the case.
I think what you just spoke about really is interesting, because I think most people out there, just assume the banks are behind the times, that they're always catching up. But what you've described here is clearly Standard Chartered leading to provide better payment environment.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, transferring, as we call as a fiat value, which is like the normal currencies that we know each other.
Right.
It is also about the digital value. Like, as a bank, we have been invested a lot in the concepts of stablecoins, like, and also we are being forefront of various experiments that the central banks are doing across the digital currencies as well, because there's a lot of work going on the central bank digital currencies in the past 5 years or so. So many different governments are looking into that. And these governments, when they are actually creating those kind of an ecosystem, they also need banks to come and actually support that particular experiment. So we have done something in Singapore. We have, we are absolutely ready. Like, yes, we can actually transfer the value over blockchain, even and how we move into the whole digital money space as well.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, Standard Chartered has a very long and trusted history.
Yep.
So it would be natural for governments and central banks to look to turn to your expertise,
Yes,
as well as your clients everywhere in the world.
everywhere in the world. Yes, and that's a very, very important point which you made, because if you closely see the network of Standard Chartered, we are deep into Africa, we are deep into Middle East, Asia. These are some of the geographies where not many multinational banks are there. These are the geographies which are ruled by the local banks, and maybe regional banks to an extent. And that is where the value of Standard Chartered comes in for our clients. The network is our strength. So if somebody wants to transfer money from Europe to, like, say, invest into Africa, invest into like Middle East, and some of these are very highly regulated markets. And that's where our expertise comes in, and that's the power of Standard Chartered.
I got to tell you, it's a breath of fresh air to hear that, because
Yes.
I've on my side been involved with too many of these banks de-risking
Yeah.
and pulling out of smaller countries and countries where it's a little more difficult to work, to the point where a lot of those countries now have a difficult time with corresponding relationships, and Standard Chartered just holds steady and increases.
Absolutely, because risk management is the core of what Standard Chartered thinks about, and it is all about how you manage risk, how you understand the local regulations, how good you are connected with the local regulators and win their confidence and win the confidence of our customers. So if you talk about many of these countries, and that's where clients prefer us. It's not just about the large corporates. I'm also talking about the development organizations. We do a lot of work from a social inclusivity perspective with lots of different top charities which are sending money, and we are the first one to deliver money to, like, say, if there's a earthquake there, if there is a some social calamity, how we are sending money to the remote corners of the world is something which is really, really interesting, and I'm absolutely proud about that I work for Standard Chartered.
And you should, because look, helping when people are in trouble, it should be human nature, right?
Yes.
And to hear that banks, which people sometimes view as not being so human,
Yeah.
that you're out in the front line delivering this. My hat off to you guys for doing that.
Yeah.
And when you talk about risk being the heart of everything
Yeah.
you do, when we're here in Amsterdam, and being here at Money 2020, I don't think is a risk for Standard Chartered. Why did you choose to come here?
Standard Chartered, and I would reflect on my experience of working with, like, say, 4 or 5 like really top banks. Standard Chartered differentiate itself in co-creation, because the way we create value for our customers, my department actually does a lot of solutioning for the customers. Not every time a bank can solution everything for the customer. There is always, there is a co-creation model with a lead fintech maybe to come in, and together bank and the fintech can come and solve something for the customer. So that is where, the motivation of Standard Chartered and the importance of Standard Chartered in events like Money 2020, which is really fintech driven and also which is innovation driven. If you have seen, there is a lot of talk about stablecoins this year. There is a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, generative AI, something that Standard Chartered has, really imbibed. So it's no longer a physics lesson for Standard Chartered. We have really implemented that within our own organization to an extent that generative AI is widely used in our own appraisal process. Generative AI is used in our shared service center in Poland to create some really, really path-breaking ideas. And it has also been, widely also used to connect various systems together within the bank so that we actually can transform the data seamlessly across various systems together.
But I tell you, it's just exciting what you're doing today. Give me a little peek into what's the future for Standard Chartered.
Standard Chartered is actually evolving itself very, very quickly, So we have got, recently we have invested quite a lot when it comes to the paytechs, which is one of the very, very growing segments. We have invested quite a lot in the digital asset side of it. We have already spoken about the future technologies like blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, which are going to be like a normal, like, current technology in future. And we have been investing into the network, where, as we said, that, how we are connecting to the various network, different remote countries in the world. That's something which a future of as a bank is absolutely innovative, and, some devising something which is out of the box with our co-creation capabilities. And there is a lot of focus on how various different departments do come together and work. This is something which differentiates the bank from the other banks. Like, here we create solutions with various teams like payments, forex, trade, everything coming together and creating a value proposition for our customers.
But I tell you, really interesting. The future seems quite bright. For me, I know Standard Chartered from when I first started in banking. I won't tell you how long that was.
Yeah.
But it's been one of the grand names in banking and continues to be. And the way you've described the future, it sounds like a fresh new bank with a great history.
Absolutely. And, the way we have been building our various franchisees and we are expanding ourselves in various countries and networks, that's something which is a core of the bank. And we truly believe in creating value for our shareholders, our own customers, and our employees.
Well, great. Well, really, Vibhor, I really appreciate you spending some time in financial IT. Best
Thank
of
you, Chris.
success to you and
Pleasure.
Standard Charter. And we look forward to speaking to you more in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.